The topic of today is role of industries, entrepreneur associations and self-help groups. These topics are very pertinent as far as the entrepreneurship is concerned. So, we will be covering various aspects of self-help groups, definitional aspect, objectives, etc. So, now we will be talking on the definitions of what are self-help groups. The self-help groups are usually informal clubs or associations of people who choose to come together to find out the ways and to improve their life situations. One of the most the useful role for the self-help group is to provide its members with the opportunity to save, to borrow, and it can act as a conduit for the formal banking services to reach their members. As a matter of fact, the self-help group is an organization in which, or a particular informal club or association of people who have actually joined hands because they want to have the mutual benefits. If they join hands, it is very easier for you to form a conduit because it's a kind of a formal banking system for them to reach out to their members. The self-help groups is the need of today, and they are informal associations of the people who choose to come together to find the ways to improve their living conditions. Because individually if they stand, it is not going to give them any kind of a mileage. But yes, if they join hands, it is a very beneficial situation for them to come together for particular reasons and to find out the ways to improve their living conditions. They help to build a kind of social capital among the poor people, especially the women. The most important function of a self-help group, or consequently the self-help groups, they have emerged as the most effective mechanisms for the delivery of microfinance services to the poor. Now, particularly we have talked about the definitional part of it. The self-help groups, they are basically the joining of people on a voluntary basis to help each other for the mutual benefits, for the loans, for the banking sector services, etc. Now, the self-help groups are formed because individually the people they are not able to get the advantages, and of course, if they join hands and be a part of the self-help groups, it is very easy for them to have the access for the services, etc. Now, the range of the financial services which they are able to get because of the self-help groups, like deposits, loans, the money transfer, and particularly the insurance. Now, we will be talking on the objectives of self-help groups, and we would be using an abbreviation called SHGs, which is an authenticated abbreviation to this effect. One of the main objective to form a self-help group is to inculcate the savings and the banking habits among the members. Number 2, to secure them from the financial, technical and the moral strength. Third, to enable the availing of the loans for the productive purposes. And next is to gain the economic prosperity through the loan and the credits. Now, one of the major objectives when you talk about the objectives of the self-help group is to gain from the collective wisdom in organizing and managing their own finance and distributing the benefits amongst themselves. So, let me give you a recap of the objectives of the self-help groups once again, because they form the basis of today's presentation. The first and the foremost objective, I will be going in detail a little far, to inculcate the saving and the banking habits among the members, because whosoever will join as members of the self-help groups may have to contribute something or the other. So, this will really inculcate a kind of a saving habits among them, a banking habit for them, and which is definitely a very important condition for the self-help group rising. Of course, when they are able to inculcate this kind of a habit of saving and banking, then this kind of a particular system, that is the self-help groups, will secure them from the financial, technical and the moral strengths, because they will have a kind of a feeling that yes, they are saving, they are doing the banking services. So, it gives them a kind of security also. Another, to enable them to have, if they are wanting any kind of a loan, etc. So, to enable the availing of loans for the productive purposes, the self-help groups is perhaps the most important type of any kind of the benefit which the self-help group people can always have. Another benefit which is associated and linked with the self-help group is to gain the economic prosperity through the loan and the credit facility. That is, whosoever wants the loan can very easily come through and become a member of the self-help groups. So, whosoever wants particular credit facilities will very easily get the loan from the self-help group itself. Now, of course, it gives them the economic security, it gives them the mental security, it gives them a very good habit of inculcating the saving habits and as well as the banking habits. So, these are the four major objectives of forming any kind of a self-help group. Then of course, to gain from the collective wisdom, because here there are a lot of members who are a part of the self-help groups. So, when so many working minds are working together, so it is definitely going to give the collective wisdom to the organization for organizing of finance, to basically disseminate any kind of the financial benefits amongst themselves. Another objective of the self-help group is to sensitize the women of the target area for the need of the self-help groups and its relevance in their empowerment. Now, basically there are so many success stories. We will be talking in the coming part of the lectures about the famous self-help groups also, because it is very important to share the self-help group success stories and tell you the exact importance and the practical importance of forming any kind of a self-help group, that from what they started and eventually what they became. Basically, unless and until somebody knows about the formation part, the beneficial part, the operational part, the outcome part of basically the self-help groups, nobody will able to understand the importance of having the self-help groups, basically the starting part of it. So, another aspect which is linked with this is to create the group feeling among the members, to enhance the confidence and the capabilities of the group members. If you form a self-help group, everything becomes very, very easy to have the access, to inculcate the financial habits, the banking habits, to give the financial security, economic security, and overall a way towards the empowerment, especially the women is concerned. It also enhances the capability and the quality part and the confidence part of all the members, be it a male or female in this regard. Not only this, to develop the collective decision making among the women. When people are sitting together, people are working together, there are chances that people tend to talk to each other. There is a collective decision making, there is a collective wisdom which will disseminate and becomes a part and parcel of the self-help group's working. And of course, this is going to give them a very good mileage as far as the collective decision making is concerned, the collective wisdom is concerned, the operational part is concerned. So, everything is going to be a win-win situation for everyone. Now, to encourage the habits of the saving among the women and facilitate the accumulation of their own capital resource base. Now, basically, when this part, that is the self-help groups, are started, the first and the foremost thing is that people will start accumulating the small money, small savings, putting into the bank, and of course, whosoever needs the loan or any kind of credit access will come through and join the process of the self-help group, because it becomes easier for them to have the access of the finance. So, this encourages the habit of saving forming amongst the women, otherwise which is definitely a very depressed class as far as the Indian society is concerned. They are not able to take any kind of a decision making, they are not able to, they are always on a receiving side, no decision making, no finances. But yes, this is a step towards the empowerment of the women, because it encourages the very small savings among them, facilitates a little kind of an accumulation of their own capital and resource base. So, they can be empowered, They can be instrumental for the economic development of India also, and of course to motivate the women taking up any kind of a social responsibilities, particularly related to the women development. So all these things are a part and a parcel of the self-help group, and it's a a very big wheel which is moving towards the women empowerment and eventually towards the economic development of India. It also acts as a forum for the members to provide the space and support to each other. Individually we fall and together we stand is the basic premise of starting any kind of a self-help group, because individually we do not have any meaning, we don't have any say, we don't have any capital. But yes, if we join hands and form a self-help group, everything is so easy, everything becomes a smooth road. Even the rough roads becomes the smooth road, because you have the access for everything in a very formalized way. Now coming on to the advantages of the financing through the self-help groups. This is a very pertinent topic of today. An economically poor individually gains strength as a part of a group. Besides, financing through the self-help group reduces the transaction cost for both the lenders as well as the borrowers. The lenders have to handle only a single self-help group account instead of a large number of small-sized individual accounts. So let me give you the detailed aspect of the advantages which are associated with the financing through self-help groups. Now basically, an economically poor individual has got no particular say. If he wants a money individually, he will not get the excess individually. But yes, if he becomes a part of the self-help group, he is strengthened. He becomes a part of the strength. He becomes a part of the group. So what else he wants? He wants money, and money becomes easier. And economically, individually person is strengthened if he is a part of the self-help group. Besides this, financing through self-help group reduces the transaction cost for both the lenders and the borrowers. How? If there are 10 people who are a part of the self-help group and the 10 people wants, otherwise the banking people would have handled 10 different accounts. But yes, they have joined hands for the mutual benefits. So the banking sector only has to deal with a single self-help group account instead of maintaining the small sized individual accounts. For them, the transaction cost is substantially reduced, and of course the transaction cost is also substantially reduced. So it is again very important and a good situation for both the lenders as well as the borrowers. Now borrowers, if you talk about as a part of a self-help group, they cut down the expenses on the travel to and from the branch and other places, for completing a paperwork, and on the loss of the working days in canvassing for the loans. Where successful self-help group have significantly empowered the poor people, especially the women in the rural areas. So these are the substantial advantages one can even think of having financing through the self-help groups. Individually, if you talk about taking a loan, the expenses are concerned, there's a lot of paperwork which individual accounts have to cater to, and to get a loan is also very difficult. They have to move from pillar to post, completing all the formalities. But yes, these things are completely wiped out if you want a loan through a self-help group and you become a part of it. So the poor people are empowered, the women is empowered, the overall rural sector is empowered. So these are the important significant aspects which are linked with the self-help groups, which is definitely giving you a very good mileage. The self-help groups have helped immensely in reducing the influence of the informal lenders in the rural areas. How so? Because everybody wants the money, be it an individual, be it a group. So there is a flourishing trend, a very welcome trend of mushrooming of these kind of self-help groups, because they are actually moving towards a direction in which the poor people are immensely helped and actually help. If you see the practical aspects of it, it is even easier for them to have the access of the money and the finance in the rural areas. There are many big corporate houses and are promoting the self-help groups at many places in India. So, basically the self-help groups, they help the borrowers overcome the problems of lack of collateral. If you talk about the individual borrowers, there are lot of formalities involved in the banking sector, and if you want the loans at an individual level, so having the collateral is again a problem. So, to arrange a collateral and for poor people is very difficult, because it is very even difficult to get their both ends meet. They are having just one meal a day. So, how could they collect any kind of collateral security? So, they are the most disadvantaged class. They are not able to have the access of the finance or the credit they want ever. So, because of the advent of these the self-help groups, there are many facilities which are being granted to them, disseminated to them, and of course, the black clouds are over, and of course, they get the facilities of having the credit because of the self-help groups, because they are not they are able to simply wipe out the problem of arranging the collateral in this regard. Now, whatever advantages we have talked about, the definitional aspect we have talked about, there are certain the taglines, there are certain do's and don'ts, there are certain principles for the formation of these self-help groups, because everything has a beginning and everything has a particular rope to tie with. So, now we will be talking on and discussing the guiding principles for formation of the self-help groups. The strong belief by the individual to bring about a change through the collective efforts. Effort is built on the mutual trust and mutual support. Every individual is equal and responsible. Every individual is committed to cause of the group. Decision is based on the principles of consensus, the beliefs and the commitment by an individual that through the group their standard of living will improve. The saving is the foundation on which to build the group of collective action. So, let me give you the overall aspects of the principles, the guiding principles about the formation of the self-help groups. We have always talked about the collective efforts. So, this is the most important aspect of any kind of a self-help groups, that we have the collective efforts here to bring about a change. Effort is built by the members, of course, on a fiduciary position of trust and confidence, and of course, the mutual support. So, these are primarily the pillars, the parameters which are most important part of the self-help groups formation. If you do not have the trust, if you do not have the support, if you do not have the confidence, then these things are not possible. So, we are only talking about the collective efforts if we are working on the mutual trust, mutual support and mutual confidence. Every individual is equal and responsible is the basic premise of forming any kind of a self-help group. Every individual is committed to cause of the group. So, having a commitment, having a trust and confidence, having belief into the self-help groups is the most important pillar to form the self-help groups. The decision making is collective, the wisdom is collective, the discussion is collective. People are committed. So, if these things are not there, then how can you form any kind of a self-help groups? So, these are the important pillars, part and parcel of the formation or the guiding principles for the formation of any kind of a self-help group. The decision is based on the principle of consensus. So, to form a consensus, to build a consensus is the most important part of a self-help group. The belief and commitment by an individual, that through the group their standard of living will improve. People always form a part of any kind of a self-help group only if they think and only if they believe that joining a self-help group will improve their standard of living. So, with this kind of a belief and commitment, people join that particular self-help group, and of course, they are proved also when you form a particular self-help group, because the decision making, the mutual trust and confidence, the building principles are most importantly are taken care of as far as the self-help groups are concerned. Saving is the foundation on the basis of which we build the collective action. If there are no savings, there is no foundation, there is no credit facilities, and there is no success of the self-help groups. So, the success of any kind of a self-help group is possible if the saving is saving is built up by a particular collective action of the people who form a particular part of the self-help groups, which is also called as a collective action. Now, the guiding principles for the formation of the self-help groups, some characteristic features of these self-help groups we will be discussing now. The overall characteristics, which are most importantly the part and the parcel and the features of the self-help groups. A particular self-help group is generally an economically homogeneous group formed through a process of self-selection based upon the affinity of its members. So, this is what people are economically challenged. So, they form a particular self-help group which is decided on their own. So, that is why we say that any kind of a self-help group is generally an economically homogeneous group formed with the process of self-selection based upon a particular affinity of its members. It's their own sweet will to join any kind of a particular group, but yes, normally we found that the groups which they are from, the background is the similar. That is, they come from the homogeneous groups, and most of the self-help groups are the women groups with membership ranging from 10 to 20. So, normally if you talk about the number of the people who are a part of the members as far as the self-help groups are concerned, they are ranging from minimum of 10 and a maximum of 20. This is not a minimum and a maximum limits, but generally it is found that the membership is ranging between the 10 women to 20 women. The self-help groups have well-defined rules and the bylaws which hold the regular meetings and maintain the records and the savings and the credit disciplines. The self-help groups are self-managed institutions characterized by the participatory and collective decision making. Now, when you talk about the guiding principles of the formation of the self-help groups, you have to understand this particular point, that the self-help groups, they have their well-defined rules and the bylaws which restricts them, put them into the boundary that they cannot move out of it, and of course they hold a regular meeting and maintain the records and savings and the credit disciplines also. For any particular organization to be successful, it is very important for them to maintain the credit disciplines. So, the credit disciplines maintained in the self-help groups by their own bylaws, by their own well-defined rules. The self-help groups are self-managed institutions characterized by particularly participatory and collective decision making. Now, the best examples is all about the Lijjat Papad, which is the most important successful a self-help group which is called as a Lijjat Papad. It is done by Shri Mahila Grah Udyog Lijjat Papad, popularly known as Lijjat. It is an Indian women cooperative involved in manufacturing of various types of fast moving consumer goods, that is the FMCG. The organization's main objective is empowerment of women by providing them the employment opportunities. So these are the key examples and the best example of a self-help group in India, and we call it as a Lijjat Papad, which is by a Mahila Gram Udyog Lijjat Papad Limited, popularly known as Lijjat. This is basically a women cooperative which is involved in the fast moving consumer goods, and it is a very successful self-help group. They started with a very minuscule amount, and they are eventually a big success story now, which we are discussing. So the basic premise of forming any kind of a self-help group is to empower the women by providing them the employment opportunities, because whosoever becomes a part of it, they are getting a good income and they are empowered. So basically they started in way back 1959, and you would be very amazed to understand that the seed capital with which they started was only rupees 80. Lijjat has an annual turnover of around now 6.5 billion rupees, that is over the 100 million US dollars in 2010, and with about rupees 290 million exports. So see this exemplary performance which has been shown by a very small self-help group which started way back in 1959 with a very seed important capital of rupees 80 only. So if you amount and measure the success of the Lijjat Papad, it is only sky's the limit for them, and they are growing and growing. Now it provides the employment of about 43,000 people, which is, you know, a big number. Lijjat is headquartered in Mumbai and has about 81 branches and 27 divisions all over the world. So what are the best examples of a self-help groups? The success factors of the Lijjat Papad are what? 1. Informal working environment, consistent quality of product, make leaders out of ordinary women. The product range of the Lijjat company includes the papad, khakra, chapatis, etc. So when you talk about the success factors of the Lijjat Papad, so they are basically informal working environment, which is very important for an individual to grow. You have a very important quality parameters, and they are very consistent in maintaining the quality of the product which they are making. The product ranges are also very good. The leaders are very ordinary women which have shown exemplary performance, and the product range when you are talking about a Lijjat Papad has a papad, khakra and chapatis, etc. Now we move on to the development process and the development industries, that is the role of a self-help groups. A self-help group, abbreviated as SHG, is a village-based financial intermediary committee, normally consists of 10 to 12 local women or men. The self-help group is basically a group of individual members who are free alliance. They come together for a particular common communal purposes. Practically, the self-help group include individual members recognized to each other and belong to the same village, that is the community, and even marketing area. They are homogeneous and have certain pre-group social binding factors. In the context of the microfinance, the self-help group are made around the theme of an investment and credits. The self-help group's guiding principle emphasizes an individual organizing the rural poor sector into the small groups through the process of the social mobilizing training and providing the bank credit and the government subsidy. The self-help groups are to be drawn from the BPL list permitted by the Gram Sabha, in which about 10 persons are selected, one each from a family, and a focus on the skill development training and on the local requirements. Now, the development process and the development industry, that is the role of SHGs. The self-help group movement has gathered a pace in the country and is directly or indirectly supporting towards the monetary development of the countryside areas. The self-help group mechanism, what it is? In the literature, a self-help group described as a group comprised of the people who have a personal experience of an analogous issue or life situations, either directly or through their family and friends. The self-help groups are developed willingly by the rural and the urban poor to contribute to a common fund to be lent to its members as per the group decisions and for working together for the social economic upliftment of the families and of the community. There are other experts explained the self-help group as a self-governed, peer-controlled information group of people with similar socio-economic background and having a desire to jointly perform the common purpose. According to Tamil Nadu Corporation for the Development of the Women, etc., that is a TNCDW, they are self-group mechanisms. The self-help group is a small, economically homogeneous affinity group of the rural poor voluntary formed to save and contribute to a common fund to be lent to its members and as per the group decisions and for working together for social economic upliftment of a family and community. Now, we would be discussing on the mission of the self-help groups, that is, with what mission are they formed. Basically, the mission of the self-help groups are as follows: to promote saving among the poor women of the country is the most important mission. Secondly, to help the poor realize their entrepreneurial and the business management skills through training and access of the capital. The major objective of the self-help group is to augment the economic development of women and to create a supportive environment for their social transformation in the lift of a gender discrimination in work and, of course, of the household. The other purpose of the self-help group is to build the functional capacity of the poor and the marginalized in the field of employment and economic generating activities. Now, what are the economic objectives? To promote saving and teach financial management skills, to improve the access to saving and credit services, to improve the living standards, to reduce the vulnerability to the poverty in times of the crisis, that is the sickness, death, etc. To further economic self-reliance and the social objectives which are behind the forming of the self-help groups is as follows: to encourage the community coherence, to offer a forum for sharing of the ideas and the knowledge, to provide the support for the members in difficulty, to develop the community in identifying and resolving their own problems. The self-help groups are small and economically homogeneous resemblance groups of the rural poor. They voluntarily join to accomplish the following task. What is that? The self-help group mechanism is as follows: to save the small amount of money regularly, to mutually agree to contribute a common fund, to fulfill their emergency requirements, to have the joint decision making, to solve the clashes through collective leadership, mutual discussions, to provide security of the free loans with the terms decided by the group at the market driven rates. The self-help groups have also amalgamated into a big organizations, typically about 15 to 50 self-help groups make up a cluster or a voluntary organization with either one or two representatives from each self-help group. Developing on geography, several the clusters come together to establish an apex body or a self-help group federation. The well organized self-help group should have the following structural features. The perfect self-help group comprises of 15 to 20 members. All the members should bring to the same socio-economic strata of society, specifically the poor. The groups should have a strong bond of sympathy. Rotational leadership should be encouraged for allocation of power to provide the basic leadership opportunities to all the members. The members should attend the meetings, save and participate in all the activities voluntarily. An aim must be provided to gainfully employment and to involve the poor in productive activities. The self-help groups should be socially feasible institution, and the procedure of the decision making in a self-help group should be self-governing in nature. It should be partisan in nature. Basically, the group frame rules and the regulations which are necessary for its effective functioning. The self-help group must involve a women in decision making to promote the leadership qualities among them. It promotes the objectives like economic improvement, raising resources for development and freedom from exploitation. The form of such group could be mostly on an informal basis. The self-help groups are mainly formed to eradicate exploitation, generate confidence for the economic independence of the rural people, particularly among the women who are mostly imperceptual in society. These groups facilitates them to join together for a common objective and to gain the strength from each other to deal with the exploitation which they are facing in several forms. A group becomes the basis of action and change. It also assists to develop the relationship of mutual trust between promoting the organization and the rural poor through continuous contact and genuine efforts. Now we are coming on to the requirement and significance of self-help groups in India. In the rural areas, the people are not competent to fulfill their basic requirement because most of them are socially backward, uneducated, with low motivation and poor economic base. They also lack the access to the knowledge and information which are the most important mechanism of the development process in the present scenario. It has been realized by the experts that in the group they may develop strength to overcome many of these weaknesses. The self-help group is formally to meet the requirement of the people which are as under, to mobilize the resources from an individual member to a collective economic development process, to uplift the living conditions of the poor, to create a habit of saving utilization of local resources, to mobilize the individual skills for the group interest, to create awareness about right, to assist the members the financial requirements at the time of necessity, to identify the problems, analyzing and funding solutions in the group, to act as a media for economic social development of a village, to develop the linkage with the institution of an NGO, that is the non-government organization, to provide training of the skill development, to help in the recovery of loans, to gain the mutual understanding, develop trust and confidence. to build up the teamwork, to develop the leadership qualities, and to use it as an effective delivery channel for the rural credits. Now we are coming on to a very pertinent part of today's lecture, that is, what are the major functions which are delivered by and played by the self-help groups. The most important functions which are significant from the self-help groups are as follows: facilitating the members to become a self-reliant and self-dependent, providing a basic forum for the members for discussing their social and economic problems, enhancing the social status of the members by virtue of their own members of the group, providing a particular platform for the members of exchange of the ideas, developing and encouraging the decision making capacity of the members, fostering a spirit of mutual help and cooperation among the members, instilling in the members a sense of strength, confidence, which they might need for solving their particular problems, providing the organizational strength to the members, providing literacy and increasing general awareness among the members, promoting numerically, equipping them, the poor section, with the basic skills which are required for understanding the monetary transactions, which is very important. So we have taken care of the 10 major functions which are delivered by the self-help groups. Thus, the self-help group function on the principles of 5 P's: propagator of volunteerism, practitioner of mutual help, provider of timely emergency loans, promoter of thrift and savings, then purveyor of the credit. So, the code of conduct and the self-help group mechanism. The self-help group is registered or unregistered group of micro entrepreneurs which have a homogeneous social economic background voluntarily coming together for the small savings amount regularly. They contribute a common fund, and to meet their emergency needs of the mutual help basis, code of conduct for the self-help group is well established group mechanism, will respect the role of a group facilitator, demonstrate the respect for each other. You have to be very courteous to others all the time, listen to each other, allow others to speak and have their say, take time out of if needed, keep to time, abide by the group rules of confidentiality, unacceptable behavior, refrain from using the offensive language, refrain from using the racism comments and behavior, etc. So, to enhance the status of the social economic conditions of the people, the self-help groups are contributing a lot in the self-employment by raising the level of the income and the standard of living of the rural people. In this framework, one of the most crucial aspects of the rural employment is to develop the self-help groups, which is valuable investment in the human capital through training and capacity building measures. From dairy to mechanized farming, weaving, pottery, food processing units, mushroom cultivation, rural India has been setting up a micro enterprise by forming the self-help groups. The group members use collective knowledge, peer pressure to make certain proper use of the fund and its timely reimbursement. These are formal groups in nature, and the members come together towards the collective action for a common cause. The common need is meeting their growing economic needs without depending on the external help. Now, effects and outcomes. In India, the self-employment has been documented as a vital force of the progress in the rural areas. It has appeared as a scheme designed to enhance the social economic life and maintaining a focus on extending the benefits of the development to the poorest in the rural areas, recovering their living standards and self-realization. The self-help group in India are integrating the low-income segments with the rest of the rural community by ensuring them a better participation in more equitable share in benefits of the developments. These groups are not only accelerating the economic development, but are also offering a plenty of jobs and improving the quality of rural life towards the self-reliance. The self-employment needs a very wide ranging and comprehensive set of activities relevant to all the aspects of the rural economy and covering the rural poor people, including the skilled, unskilled, landless laborers and artisans of the rural India. Even though the rural Indians are put to industrial skills in all the rural development activities, their economic status has not improved to an expected level. Although they have much more potential, but still they are very ignorant of the converting their skills into realities. So, the self-help group is a process of organizing and poor populace of the village areas and marginalized to join the together to solve their personal problems. The self-help group method is used by the government, NGOs and others at a global level. In India, the self-help groups have gained the success in the beginning, the women to the mainstream of decision making. The self-help groups have become a source of inspiration for the women welfare. The formation of the self-help group is a feasible alternative to attain the objective of the rural development and to get community contribution in all the rural development programs. The self-help group is also practicable, organized, set up to disperse the micro credit to the rural women and encouraging them together to the entrepreneurial activities and to listen to the poverty and to empower the women. The microfinance, the self-help groups are credit management groups. They have also started in India. So, coming to the summary part of it, the entrepreneurs occupy a central position in the market economy for its entrepreneurs who serve as a spark plug of the economy's engine, activating and stimulating the economic activity. The economic success of the nations worldwide is a result of encouraging and rewarding the entrepreneurial functions. The mission of the self-help group to promote the savings, to help the poor and to build the business management skills through training and access to the capital. Now, the economic objectives, the social objectives of the self-help groups are as follows: to promote the savings and teach the financial management skills, to improve the access to saving and credit services, to improve the living standards of the people, to reduce the vulnerability of the poverty in terms of the crisis, that is the sickness and death, to further economic self-reliance, to encourage the community tolerance, to afford a common forum for sharing of the ideas and the knowledge, to provide the support to the members in difficulty, to help the community in identifying and resolving their own problems. And the features of the self-help groups as a part of the summary are as follows. The well-defined self-help groups should have the following structural features. Perfect self-help groups comprises 15 to 20 members. All the members should belong to the same social economic strata of the society, specifically the poor, and the group should have a strong bond of the sympathy. Rotational leadership should be encouraged for the allocation of the power and to provide the enders opportunities to all the members. The members should attend the meetings, save and participate in all economic activities voluntarily. The aim must be to provide a gainful employment and to involve the poor in the productive act. The self-help group should be socially feasible institution. To the procedure of decision making in the self-help group should be self-governing in nature. It should be non-partisan in nature, and of course, the group frame rules and the regulations which are all necessary for its effective functioning. The self-help group must involve the women in decision making and to provide the leadership qualities among them. It provides the objectives like economic empowerment, raising resources for development, and the freedom from exploitation. The form of such a group could be mostly on an informal basis. The self-help groups are mutual aid group of all self-governed, peer-controlled, informal group of the people with the same social environment background and have a desire for collective resolving and a common problem. They are and they may exist separately as a part of the large organizations. In India, the self-help groups are usually formed by the rural people, especially the women who are in homogeneous financial background. The Tamil Nadu Corporation for the Development of the Women defines the self-help group as a group of 12 to 20 women of the same background who can together for their own upliftment. The Department of the Women and the Child Development has the following major initiatives: requirement and significance of self-help groups, to mobilize the resources of the individual members, to uplift the conditions of the poor, to create the habit of the savings, to mobilize the individual skills, to create the awareness about the right. The self-help group functions on the principle of 5 is propagate voluntarism, promote mutual help, give them timely loans, promoter of thrift and savings, and purveyor of the credit. The code of the conduct for the self-help groups, that is, respect the role of the group facilitator, demonstrate the respect of each other, be courteous to others, listen to each other, allow each other to speak and talk time if needed, keep in time, abide by the rules, refrain from using the offensive language, etc. With these words, I hope the formation, the objectives, the advantages, the success stories of the self-help groups are clear to you. Thank you so much.